Seven Dwarfs, thriller style.
Once upon a time in a faraway land, a lovely queen sat by her window sewing. As she worked, she pricked her finger with her needle. 3 drops of blood fell on the snow-white linen.
How happy I would be if I had a little girl with lips as red as blood, skin as white as snow, and hair as black as ebony,
thought the queen. When spring came, her wish was granted. A little daughter was born to the queen, and she was all her mother had desired. But the queen's happiness was brief. Holding her lovely baby in her arms, she whispered,
"Little Snow White."
And then she died. When the lonely king married again, his new queen was beautiful, but alas, she was also heartless and cruel. She was jealous of all the lovely ladies of the kingdom, but most jealous of all of the lovely little princess. Now the queen's most prized possession was the magic mirror. Every day she looked into it and asked,
"Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of us all?"
If the mirror replied that she was fairest in the land, all was well. But if another lady was named, the queen flew into a furious rage and had her killed. As the years passed, Snow White grew more and more beautiful, and her sweet nature made everyone love her, everyone but the queen. The queen's chief fear was that Snow White might grow to be the fairest in the land, so she banished the young princess to the servants' quarters, made her dress in rags, and forced her to slave from morning to night. But while she worked, Snow White dreamed dreams of a handsome prince who would come someday and carry her off to his castle in the clouds. And as she dusted and scrubbed and dreamed, Snow White grew more beautiful day by day. At last came the day the queen had been dreading. She asked,
"Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of us all?"
And the mirror replied,
"Her lips blood red, her hair like night, her skin like snow, her name Snow White."
Pale with anger, the queen rushed from the room and called her huntsman to her.
"Take the princess into the forest and bring back her heart in this jeweled box,"
she said. The huntsman bowed his head in grief. He had no choice but to obey the cruel queen's commands. Snow White had no fear of the kindly huntsman. She went happily into the forest with him. It was beautiful there among the trees, and the princess, not knowing what was in store for her, skipped alongside the huntsman, now stopping to pick violets, now singing a happy tune. At last the poor huntsman could bear it no longer. He fell to his knees before the princess.
"I cannot kill you, princess,"
he said,
"even though the queen has commanded. Run into the forest and never return to the castle."
Then away went the huntsman. On his way back to the castle, he killed a small animal and took its heart in a jeweled box to the wicked queen. Alone in the forest, Snow White wept with fright. Deeper and deeper into the woods she ran, half blinded by tears. It seemed to her the roots of trees reached up to her feet, the branches reached out to clutch at her dress as she passed. At last, weak with terror, Snow White fell to the ground and lay there, sobbing her heart out. Ever so quietly, out from burrows and nests in hollow trees, crept the little woodland animals. Bunnies and chipmunks, raccoons and squirrels gathered around to keep watch over her. When Snow White looked up and saw them there, she smiled through her tears. At the sight of her smile, the little animals crept closer, snuggling in her lap or nestling in her arms. The birds sang their gayest melodies, and the little forest clearing was filled with joy.
"I feel so much better now,"
Snow White told her new friends.
"but I still need a place to sleep."
One of the birds chirped something, and the little animals nodded in agreement. Then off flew the birds, leading the way. The rabbits, chipmunks, and squirrels followed after, and Snow White came along with her arm around the neck of a gentle mother deer. At last, through a tangle of brush, Snow White saw a tiny cottage nestling in the clearing ahead.
"How sweet,"
She cried,
"it's just like a doll's house."
and she clapped her hands in delight. Skipping across the little bridge to the house, Snow White peeked in through one window pane. She ventured inside and said,
"It's lovely. I could live here happily ever after."
Exhausted from her journey, she went upstairs to rest. While she was sleeping, 7 little dwarfs came in singing a happy tune.
I hope, it's homeward we go.
They went upstairs for bed when they found Snow White sprawled across their beds. Surprised, Snow White faked excitement.
"How lovely to have 7 little roommates. What might your names be?"
I'm happy, I'm dark, I'm bashful, I'm sleepy, I'm sneezy, I'm dopey, and I'm grumpy. tired from all the excitement and decided to go to bed. The next morning, Happy woke up early and decided to go pick some flowers for Snow White. Little did he know that Snow White followed him out into the forest. Happy thought he felt someone behind him. Snow White crept up on Happy and strangled him. She dragged his body to the meadow and went back to the cottage. Later that morning, Doc awoke to some noise outside. He went out and Snow White called him over. As he went over, Snow White did one last chop and the tree squished off. She dragged his body to the meadow and went back to the cottage. When she got in, she started making some tea for Bashful, who had just awoken. She handed Bashful a cup. Little did he know it was poison. Bashful fell on the ground dead. Snow White dragged his body to the meadow and then went back to the cottage. She heard Sneezy sneezing and offered him some medicine. As he was taking some, Snow White snuck up behind him and stabbed him with her pocket knife. She dragged his body to the meadow and then returned to the cottage. Dopey and Grumpy both awoke because they heard some commotion downstairs. They noticed some of their dwarf friends were missing, and so was Snow White. They went into the forest. As they were walking along, they saw some feet sticking out from behind a tree. They walked over and found a pile of dead dwarves. The next thing they knew, Snow White was attacking them with an axe. She piled the bodies on the others in the meadow. Snow White turned around to see Sleepy staring at her in disbelief. He turned to run away, but Snow White was too fast. She tackled him to the ground, ripped his heart out, and ate it. She dragged his body over to the pile and returned to the cottage. Finally, the cottage was